The Ford Mustang has always been more than just a car. It's a symbol of American performance and individuality, and among the pantheon of Mustangs that have captured the hearts of enthusiasts for over half a century, few names resonate with as much reverence as the Boss 429. Built during the height of Detroit's muscle car wars, this particular Mustang wasn't born just to turn heads on the street. It was engineered to conquer the racetrack, built to satisfy NASCAR's demanding homologation rules, and crafted to embody the raw power and engineering ambition of Ford's golden era. When the first-generation Mustang took America by storm in 1964, it quickly became a blank canvas for performance divisions and tuners to flex their engineering prowess. By 1969, Ford's racing ambitions were firing on all cylinders, and the Mustang lineup reflected it. That year alone saw the introduction of several now iconic variants, including the Mach 1, the Boss 302, and the crown jewel, the Boss 429. The Boss 302 may have dominated the Trans Am circuit with its rev-happy small-block V8, but the Boss 429 was an entirely different animal. It wasn't designed to win cornering contests. It was designed to win on the ovals of NASCAR, where displacement and top-end power reigned supreme. To make the Boss 429 legal for NASCAR, Ford needed to install its massive 429 cubic inch, 7.0-liter, semi-Hemi V8 into at least 500 production cars. Thus, the Mustang Boss 429 was born, not because Ford wanted another muscle car for the showroom, but because it wanted to beat Chrysler's mighty 426 Hemi on the track. Built by hand, each Boss 429 engine was a masterpiece of performance engineering. Aluminum heads, a high-rise intake manifold, and heavy-duty internals made it unlike any other Ford the fifth eight of its time. Rated conservatively at 375 horsepower and 450 lb-ft of torque, the Boss 429's true potential was far greater than the numbers suggested. In racing trim, with minor tweaks, this engine was capable of producing well over 500 horsepower, an astonishing figure for the late 1960s. Even by Mustang standards, the Boss 429 was an exclusive machine. To make room for the massive engine, Ford sent regular Mustang bodies to Carcraft, a specialty shop in Michigan tasked with heavily modifying the front end. The shock towers were reshaped, the front suspension reworked, and the battery relocated to the trunk to achieve better weight balance. Every car was hand-assembled, and every detail reflected a level of craftsmanship and precision rare for the muscle car era. It wasn't just about brute force. It was about making the Mustang capable of handling an engine that had been designed for the racetrack. Yet, for all its engineering brilliance, the Boss 429's production run was incredibly short-lived. Only 859 examples were built in 1969, followed by a mere 499 in 1970. That makes it one of the rarest high-performance Mustangs ever produced, even rarer than some of the Shelby variants of the same era. Among these, a handful were finished in grabber orange, a vibrant, high-impact color that perfectly captured the bold attitude of the late 1960s. Fewer than 15 cars are believed to have left the factory in this hue, making any surviving example a collector's dream. The car featured here is one of those precious few 1970 Boss 429s, and what makes it truly extraordinary is its authenticity. It's not a restoration, not a recreation, but a genuine survivor, still wearing its original factory paint, complete with most of its factory-installed components intact. Decades have passed since it first rolled off the assembly line, yet this machine remains a time capsule, an unfiltered glimpse into one of Ford's proudest moments. Recently rediscovered and brought back into the light by Nate's Classic Cars, a dealership renowned for specializing in vintage high-performance Mustangs. This particular Boss 429 is proof that history can still breathe. After years in storage, the car fired up and drove out under its own power, a rare sight for a car of this caliber. Its engine note remains as menacing as ever, the deep rumble of the 429 V8 echoing with the unmistakable soul of the muscle car era. For collectors and enthusiasts alike, seeing a true Boss 429 in unrestored condition is an experience that borders on the sacred. It's not just about rarity or horsepower, it's about preservation. Each scratch, each bit of patina tells a story, a chronicle of decades survived, of roads traveled and memories made. And when you add the brilliance of Grabber Orange into the mix, you have a car that doesn't just stand out. It radiates history. Footage of the car being carefully moved between storage facilities might not sound thrilling at first, but for Mustang purists, it's a mesmerizing experience. Watching a genuine 1970 Boss 429, still wearing its original paint, idle and roll forward under its own power is a reminder of what made this era so special. It's not merely nostalgia. It's a living connection to a time when horsepower ruled the roads and racing fueled innovation. Cars like this remind us that the Boss 429 was never just a Mustang. It was Ford's declaration of intent, a mechanical masterpiece that bridged the gap between the racetrack and the street. And while Ford has resurrected nearly every other performance nameplate from its glory days, the Mach 1, the Cobra Jet, the Boss 302, the Boss 429 remains untouched, perhaps because its legend is already complete. Some cars are too sacred to be repeated, and the Boss 429 is one of them. Decades later, the mystique surrounding the Boss 429 has only grown stronger. To own one today is not merely to possess a muscle car. It's to hold a tangible piece of Ford's racing heritage, a mechanical time capsule forged at the height of American automotive ambition. Every inch of the car reflects an era when engineers were driven by passion and competition, not software and emissions charts. It was a time when muscle cars were raw, unapologetic expressions of power, and the Boss 429 stood as the ultimate symbol of that philosophy. Collectors and restorers often regard the Boss 429 as the holy grail of classic Mustangs, and for good reason. Its combination of scarcity, motorsport pedigree, and mechanical sophistication sets it apart from anything else produced during the muscle car era. Unlike the more common Mustangs that shared dealer lots in the late 60s, the Boss 429 was an elite machine, expensive, demanding, and purpose-built. With its massive engine, refined aerodynamics, and competition-inspired internals, it wasn't the kind of car you bought for cruising downtown. It was one you owned to make a statement. Each surviving Boss 429 has its own story. Some spent their lives as prized possessions in private collections, preserved from day one. Others were raced, abused, restored, and rediscovered decades later. And then there are the true survivors, like the Grabber Orange car showcased by Nate's Classic Cars, machines that somehow escaped the wear and tear of time, maintaining their originality against all odds. Cars like this represent something far greater than numbers on a spec sheet. They embody the craftsmanship and culture that defined American performance engineering during its most exciting years. Looking closely at this example, it's clear how much care and intention went into every detail. The lines of the fastback body still evoke a sense of motion even at a standstill, while the deep orange paint glows under the light like a preserved relic of 1970s optimism. The interior, though aged, carries the scent of authenticity, a blend of old leather, vinyl, and the faint echo of gasoline that only a true survivor can offer. The car's stance, wide and purposeful, perfectly complements the legend beneath its hood. That massive, semi-Hemi 429 engine, still capable of delivering its unmistakable thunder. While Ford has revisited many of its performance legends over the decades, the Boss 429 remains conspicuously untouched. Perhaps that's intentional. The original car was born out of necessity, created to win races, not to satisfy nostalgia. Recreating it today would be nearly impossible without diluting the purity that made it special. Modern technology could certainly reproduce the horsepower and refinement, but it could never recreate the spirit. The Boss 429 wasn't just about performance, it was about audacity. It was Ford's challenge to the establishment, a defiant roar that still echoes through automotive history. In today's collector market, the Boss 429 sits at the top of the pyramid. Pristine, original examples regularly command prices well into the six-figure range, and exceptional survivors like this one can fetch even more. But for true enthusiasts, the car's value goes far beyond its auction potential. It's a living monument to a time when automakers dared to take risks, when competition fueled innovation, and when the connection between driver and machine was visceral, mechanical, and real. Watching the Grabber Orange Boss 429 idle to life after decades of slumber feels almost poetic. The deep, rhythmic pulse of the V8 reverberates like a heartbeat from the past. It's a reminder that while time may move forward, legends like this refuse to fade. They endure in metal, in motion, and in memory. Proof that performance is more than numbers. It's emotion, heritage, and soul. For those lucky enough to witness it in person, this car isn't just another piece of classic machinery. It's history in motion. It's Ford at its boldest, American engineering at its peak, and the muscle car dream realized in its purest form. The Boss 429 stands as a lasting testament to what happens when ambition meets innovation and when a company dares to push beyond the limits of the possible. Even today, more than half a century later, few cars capture that same intoxicating mix of power, rarity, and reverence. And as the sunlight glints off that vivid grabber orange paint, still original, still proud, it's hard not to feel a deep sense of respect, not just for the car itself, but for the era it represents. A time when horsepower ruled, when legends were forged in steel, and when the roar of a big block V8 was the sound of freedom. Even among the most celebrated muscle cars, the Boss 429 occupies a special pedestal, a car that bridges the gap between myth and machinery. It's a product of uncompromising ambition, born from an age when horsepower was both a science and a statement. Today, to see one like this, still wearing its factory paint, its lines unaltered by restoration or modification, is to step directly into 1970, when the American car industry was at the peak of its swagger and imagination. There's an aura around the Boss 429 that photographs can't fully capture. Stand beside it, and you feel its physical presence. The long, sculpted hood, the deep-set grille, and the subtle Boss 429 lettering that hints at the brute force beneath. There's nothing ostentatious about it. No exaggerated spoilers or racing stripes shouting for attention. Instead, its power is implied, the kind of quiet confidence that doesn't need to prove anything. The grabber orange hue adds just enough drama, catching the light and changing character as you move around the car. It's both elegant and intimidating, a perfect reflection of late 1960s performance aesthetics. Slip behind the wheel and the world narrows. The interior is pure Mustang, simple, functional, and focused, but everything feels heavier, more deliberate. The massive hood stretches out in front of you like a promise, and when the 429 roars to life, that promise is fulfilled in an instant. There's a raw, unfiltered mechanical sound, a deep bass that vibrates through your chest and reminds you that this is no ordinary car. Even at idle, the engine's lope has a rhythm all its own, the unmistakable heartbeat of a legend. Driving a Boss 429 is not for the faint-hearted. The steering feels weighty, the clutch demands respect, and the throttle responds like it's tethered to a live wire. But that's exactly what makes it special. It's a car that rewards skill, that demands your full attention, and in return, delivers an experience modern performance cars can only imitate. There are no driving modes, no traction control, just pure mechanical connection between man and machine. Every shift, every turn, every surge of acceleration feels earned. As the years roll by and automotive technology continues to evolve, the Boss 429 remains an unshakable reminder of what performance used to mean. It wasn't about lap times or software calibration, it was about engineering courage, about designing something that didn't just move quickly, but moved people. The fact that cars like this still exist in unrestored, running condition feels almost miraculous. They are living artifacts, proof that passion can endure decades without fading. For many enthusiasts, seeing this grabber orange Boss 429 alive and well isn't just exciting, it's emotional. It's a flashback to a time when Ford, Chrysler, and Chevrolet waged war on the streets and the track, when NASCAR homologation wasn't just a marketing tool but a badge of honor. The sound of that big block thunder serves as a connection to that golden age, a sound that stirs the heart of anyone who has ever fallen in love with a car. Cars like this remind us why the muscle car era continues to inspire generations. The Boss 429 is more than a machine. It's a legend made tangible, a story told through steel, chrome, and gasoline. And as it continues to roll into the sunlight after decades of slumber, its message remains timeless. True performance never fades. It just waits for the right moment to roar again.